I lived with my MILF for a total of 7 years, enduring constant neglect. Eventually, my sister-in-law's desire to live with her fiancé and in-laws led to my being kicked out. My future husband is a doctor. With his income, we can support my parents too. Having someone like you with low income just burdens us. Get out. After enduring my sister-in-law's insults, I returned to my parents' home emotionally battered. Venting to my brother brought relief, but an unexpected turn came. Nice to meet you. I'm Kate, Ted's fiancée. Well, Ted, your mother is a lovely person. My brother's fiancée, my sister-in-law, visited our home. Fear kept me confined to the bathroom. Though I managed to avoid meeting her that day, hiding my identity as Ted's sister would prove difficult. Confiding in my brother, we planned how to approach our in-laws. On the wedding day, my in-laws were puzzled seeing me as part of the groom's side of the family. Hey, what are you doing? Don't embarrass us here. I revealed I was the groom's sister. The wedding turned chaotic, leaving my in-laws pale-faced. It might have been the worst day for my in-laws, but it turned out to be the best day for me. My name is Grace. Currently, I'm 27 years old and working as a medical office assistant. I got to know my husband, Noah, when I was 23, and we got married. Both of us were still young and didn't have much income, so my mother-in-law made this suggestion. Why don't you live together in this house until you save up enough money to buy your own? We took her up on that offer and chose to live together. When we got married, Noah went to my parents' house to introduce himself, but after that, there was no particular interaction between our families. My parents and my in-laws never met even once. Since our goal was to buy a new home, we didn't have a wedding ceremony, nor did we arrange a meeting between our families. I wanted to have that meeting, but my parents politely declined, saying they didn't want to spoil our newlywed life. Little did we know, this decision would backfire. After living together for a while, I realized that this was hell. Grace uses such cheap cosmetics. You're almost 30, aren't you embarrassed? Let's use something more age-appropriate, shall we? Despite being 5 years older than me, my sister-in-law sees me as competition and tries to assert dominance. Every day, when I encounter her in the washroom, she stares at me from head to toe. At one point, I tried to adjust my waking time to avoid meeting my sister-in-law, but it was impossible. There are 5 people living in my husband's family. If I suddenly changed my waking time, it would be inconvenient for my father-in-law and mother-in-law. So, if I wake up later than my sister-in-law, she purposely lingers longer to make me late. Therefore, I had no choice but to endure the current situation while being ridiculed by my sister-in-law. Noah thought it was inevitable. We're in a position where we're being allowed to live here, so we have no choice but to endure. If you don't like it, they'll tell us to leave. That's true, but, I mean, it's been 4 years since we got married, right? Haven't we saved up enough for a down payment on a house? Every month, I give $500 to my in-laws, and I give $300 to Noah for the money to buy a house. We promised to save $300 each, so by now, we should have saved about $30,000. No, let's save a little more because I want to live in a better house. Come on, I'll even talk to sis about it. Just a little more patience, okay? Well, let's buy a house by the time I turn 30. At that time, Noah said it was too early to make a decision, and I went along with it. Since that conversation, a month has passed without anything being resolved with my sister-in-law. While having dinner, my sister-in-law suddenly looked at her phone and started grinning. What's wrong? Did something good happen? Really? Can you tell? I guess my happy aura is showing, huh? My sister-in-law looked pleased to be the topic of the conversation. So, she answered teasily, actually, I have a boyfriend now, and he's a really wealthy doctor. Isn't that amazing? Well, that's awesome. You hit the jackpot. Both my in-laws were thrilled. Despite it being just the dating stage, they started talking about marriage, and Noah's family was ecstatic, thinking their future was already secure. Knowing my sister-in-law's mean-spirited nature, I pretended to be happy to be in line with the atmosphere at my in-laws. All the while, I was thinking they'd eventually break up anyway. But then my sister-in-law looked at me and said I didn't seem happy. Aren't you supposed to be happy that your sister-in-law got a boyfriend? I hastily denied it, but that didn't seem to sit well either. Glancing briefly at Noah, she taunted with a snicker. Sigh, poor Noah. Forced to marry such an ordinary woman. No money, no education, and an awful personality. Where are her good points? Rather than blaming me, she began to pity Noah for marrying me. And Noah, without even defending me, just accepted it. Yeah, you're right. If Grace were rich or a doctor, I could have provided everyone with a good life. Furthermore, my sister-in-law says it's not just Noah, but even pities my in-laws who allowed us to live together. If I had opposed living together from the beginning, Mom and Dad wouldn't have had to live uncomfortably. And if we hadn't been living together, maybe my boyfriend would be living in this house by now, supporting everyone. She's increasingly directing her anger towards me. And my sister-in-law's words seem to have riled up my in-laws as well. That's true too. We shouldn't have recommended living together. If we hadn't, maybe the doctor's son-in-law would be living here by now. Because of you, it's impossible to take anyone else in. When it was decided that I would live with my in-laws, Noah's room was only about 80 square feet. It was cramped for 2 people, so my sister-in-law generously gave up her 130 square foot room for us. Now she's regretting it and taking it out on me. Why aren't you apologizing? Everyone's inconvenienced because of you. And if you're not sorry, move to the storage room or something. My father-in-law demanded this of me. I tried to seek help from Noah, but he just glared at me and didn't help. Everyone in my in-laws' family sent cold stares my way, waiting for an apology. I became scared of those stares and couldn't speak up. Then, I was misunderstood as being shameless and not intending to apologize, and my sister-in-law said to me, "Enough already. You should realize how your actions changed the future of our family." After that, I started being ignored by everyone in my in-laws' family. I don't even get dinner that my mother-in-law prepares every day. If I was in the same room as someone, the lights were turned off when he or she left. Even when I greet them, I'm ignored as if I'm not there. I tried to discuss it with Noah several times. Being ignored like this won't solve anything. Let's dark it out. Please, cooperate with me so we can talk to your sister. But my desperate pleas were met with no eye contact or response. Once, I even filled in a divorce paper and left it on Noah's desk, but he threw it away. He has no intention of having a discussion, and he won't agree to a divorce either. Even when I tried to talk directly to my sister-in-law, she ignored me as I thought she would. My father-in-law and mother-in-law have been making sarcastic remarks and deliberately causing trouble for me. This kind of life has been going on for 3 years, and it has really taken a toll on my mental health. I thought about going back to my parents' house many times along the way, but I didn't because I knew it would play right into my in-laws' hands. But one day, my sister-in-law suddenly said this to me. "How long are you going to freeload here? Just get out of this house already." Apparently, things are going smoothly with my sister-in-law's boyfriend, and they've recently been talking about marriage. And after they get married, her fiancé was thinking to live with the in-laws, so she's trying to kick me out. Then I'll discuss with Noah and find a place before I leave. While I don't want to just do whatever my sister-in-law says, I'm relieved to think that I don't need to continue suffering at my in-laws' house. I was considering using the savings I've been putting aside to buy a new house and leave as soon as possible, but Noah made an outrageous statement. "What? You're the only one leaving? Why should I have to leave too? Go back to your parents' house." I couldn't believe what Noah said. Despite being married, the idea of only myself leaving seemed incomprehensible. Aren't we supposed to leave together since we're married? Upon hearing this, he let out a big sigh and began speaking with an expression of disbelief. "Listen here. Try buying a house with your meager income now. It'll be a huge burden on me alone. If you were a doctor or something, we would have bought a house by now. But with your job, it'll only end up with us leading a poor, sad life. Use your head a bit and try talking common sense." I was told it was impossible to buy a new house now, and he demanded that we separate. I offered to divorce if that's what he wanted, but Noah refused, citing concerns about his reputation. Then, my in-laws, who had heard everything, began lecturing me. "Have you ever thought about Noah? He's working his butt off for you, and all you do is complain about not being able to buy a house or threatening divorce if you can't. It's just ridiculous to hear. Don't complain when you only have a job that can't even support your husband. Get out of here right now. With everyone in my husband's family pressing on me, I convinced myself that I had said something wrong. Apologizing while trembling from the cold stares of everyone, I fled back to my parents' house. After a 3-hour train ride back home, my parents looked extremely worried as soon as they saw my face. But at that time, I still believed that I was the one at fault, so I vaguely explained to my parents what had happened. I said something that hurt Noah a lot, so I came back home to reflect on it, so I'll be staying here for a while. After telling my parents that and getting their approval, my brother came home. "Yeah, I'm home, Hood Grace. It's been a while." My brother greeted me with a smile, but seeing my pale complexion, he immediately said this: "Did something wrong happen that made you come back?" "All right, Grace, let's go out for a drink right now." It was already past 10 p.m., but my brother took me to a bar. Sensing that there was something I couldn't talk about in front of our parents, seeing my worried brother, I couldn't hold back my tears and told him the truth. Being ignored by my husband's entire family, being ordered to separate because my sister-in-law was getting married, and feeling sad because Noah wouldn't stand by my side. I told him everything, feeling a bit relieved afterward. But as my brother listened to the story, he became increasingly irritated on my behalf. "You went through all that, and I trusted Noah, but I never thought he'd be that kind of guy." He got angry for me on my behalf. Despite the state I was in, I felt a little happy. Then my brother gave me a gentle scolding. "Hey, you didn't have to put up with that for 3 years, you know. You should have consulted with me right away and left sooner. Otherwise, you're just making yourself suffer, Grace." Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't want to play into the hands of my sister-in-law, so I was stubborn. "But I'm sorry, looking back now, I should have talked to you sooner." He advised me to change my way of thinking a little, and we left the bar after I calmed down. On the way back, my brother shared his own story with me. "Well, I'll be careful not to become like that. I haven't told Mom yet, but I'm actually thinking of getting married." "Huh? Really? Congratulations." I was surprised by the sudden news, but I was filled with joy. "And she has parents who retired and aging, and their health is deteriorating, so she wants to live together. Since I lectured you, I have to be careful not to do the same thing, Grace." Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile. Really? But if you end up like that, then it's my turn to help. We made a promise. We went home and he told our parents about his plans to get married. He said his fiancée would come over to introduce herself soon. I was also asked to be present, and I was looking forward to that day. A few days later, as my brother and his fiancée were heading our way, I found myself stuck in the bathroom due to a stomach ache. Unable to make it out in time, she arrived and headed to the living room. As Ted's sister, I felt sorry for not being able to welcome my brother's fiancée properly. But then I froze upon hearing a familiar, high-pitched voice with an annoying way of speaking coming through the door. "Well, Ted, your mother is so beautiful. And father too. Seriously, meeting Ted and getting married was the best thing ever that happened to me." It was a voice I recognized, along with that irritating way of speaking. Without a doubt, my brother's fiancée was my sister-in-law. "I'm sorry, I wanted to introduce my sister too, but she seems to be busy right now. I'll introduce her later." Yay! Ted's sister must be a really cute and wonderful woman. I can't wait to meet her. My spine froze as they brought me up. What kind of face should I make if I came out of the bathroom now? And I had no idea what to say. If I told my brother about this now, it would only put him in a tough spot and cause trouble. So, with farts going around and around in my head, I was unable to leave the bathroom that day. After my sister-in-law left, my brother worriedly asked, "Grace, are you okay?" "Why, yay. I ate a lot of ice cream last night." Sorry for worrying you." I lied on the spot and only came out of the bathroom after my brother had left. Should I tell my brother about this right away? But I didn't see her face, just heard her voice. Maybe she's just someone with a similar voice. I didn't want to worry my brother with unnecessarily things, so I kept quiet about it that day. Then, a few weeks later, my brother apparently went to visit his fiancée's family to introduce himself. If he had seen Noel at that time, I wouldn't have to say anything, but it seems like they didn't see each other. It seems she has a younger brother, but he was out and we couldn't meet. He's a year younger than me, so it would be nice to have hobbies or something to talk about. My brother was looking forward to his new life. And as for living together, it seems they haven't finished rearranging the rooms yet, so they'll talk about it after the wedding. They'll probably switch my sister-in-law and Noah's rooms, and all my belongings will probably be disposed of. Little by little, my brother began preparations for the wedding. We lived separate lives, with him being a doctor, and only occasionally having days off that coincided with me. Without any discussion or consultation, the day before the wedding arrived. Then, surprisingly, I received a call from Noah, who usually only contacts me when he wants to ask for rent for the new place. Tomorrow, my sister is getting married, so come to the wedding. And prepare a cash gift of $5,000. Upon receiving the call from Noah, I became convinced that indeed my brother's wife was my sister-in-law. As I pondered about this without replying to Noah, he gave me a warning. If you mess up with your bad manners at the wedding tomorrow and get laughed at by their family, you know what'll happen, right? Make sure you learn perfect etiquette by tomorrow. With that said, the call was disconnected. Of course, tomorrow is also my brother's wedding, so I've been studying up on both wedding gifts and etiquette. But I still haven't told my brother that his wife might actually be my sister-in-law. As I pondered what to do, I headed to the living room where my parents and brother were deep in conversation. So, tomorrow's the wedding. Just one more day living in this house. It went by so fast. As my brother and parents were feeling melancholic, I felt hesitant to bring it up, which left me at a loss. At that moment, my brother noticed my presence and invited me out to a bar again. Without hesitation, I agreed, and we walked to the bar together once more. Feeling like now was the only time to speak, I gathered my courage and spoke up. "Ted, your wife, she might actually be Noah's sister-in-law." As I confessed, my brother was surprised and froze for a few seconds. Seeing his expression, I couldn't help but think I had messed up. Maybe I said something unnecessary. If I hadn't said anything, my brother could have greeted the wedding tomorrow with a smile, but because of me. As I thought about it, my brother said to me, "Is that true?" I don't know. I only heard her voice when she came to visit. As I said that, my brother immediately showed me a photo of him and his wife. Without a doubt, the woman in the photo was my sister-in-law. Yay! This is the sister-in-law I talked about before. I was afraid of my brother's reaction. When I timidly raised my head, he looked at me with eyes that seemed like they were about to cry. "I caused you so much trouble. I'm sorry. I was busy and couldn't listen to you, and you went through a hard time." My brother apologized deeply on behalf of his wife. I didn't want my brother to apologize, nor did I want to stop the wedding. I should be the one to apologize, to tell you something so important on the day before. As we got a grasp of the situation, we apologized to each other. "So, I'll marry and live with her, which means Grace will be kicked out. That Kate." My brother had a look on his face like he couldn't believe that his wife would do something like that to his sister. "All right, I have an idea, but I'll need your help." With that, he planned a surprise for everyone at the wedding the next day. Laughing at my brother's plan, I agreed. On the wedding day, I got ready early in the morning and went back to my in-laws' house once. "You're running late. How dare you keep us waiting? We need to impress the other family by going earlier than them." "That's right, don't let some stranger get in our way." As I was being scolded like that, I got into the car with my in-laws and headed to the wedding venue. I kept apologizing the whole time in the car, but deep down, I didn't feel bad at all. And until the meeting between the two families was held in the waiting room, my in-laws were all restless. Gah. Over there, they have parents and relatives with a son who's a doctor. If we make a good impression here, they might help us in the future. All right, let's do our best, everyone. Yay, definitely. Let's make sure not to mess up. They were determined to make every effort to be well liked, but it was already too late. Unaware that they were already disliked, they huddled together in a ridiculous-looking circle. Of course, I wasn't allowed to be part of that circle. I stood at a distance, watching with cold eyes. After exchanging greetings with both families, we were guided by the staff to move. When Noah saw the other side's parents, he widened his eyes and did a double take. Having seen them before when I introduced them when we got married, he couldn't believe his eyes. Rubbing them repeatedly, he tried to take another look. Hey! Stop staring like that, it's embarrassing. Look straight ahead. Despite being quietly reprimanded, he didn't stop. As I moved to take my seat, I bypassed Noah and sat on the groom's side. Hey! What are you messing around for? Come over here. My father-in-law called out, but I ignored him and sat in the front row on the groom's side. Frantically, my mother-in-law tried to call me back. I can't believe her, this girl. Come on, stop acting out. You're giving a bad impression because of your behavior. No. I'm fine here. With that, my in-laws were puzzled. They looked at me as if I had lost my mind, but when they glanced at Ted's parents, their attitude changed completely. Hey, Mom. As I directed their gaze to my parents, they finally realized. My mother-in-law went pale. Seeing her reaction, my father-in-law turned to my parents and let out a scream as if he had seen a horror movie. Your daughter's husband is actually my brother. It's such a coincidence. I was surprised too. As I explained this, the relatives on the bride's side began to feel uneasy. Who could have imagined that the wife of Noah, who had always been treated with contempt by his parents, was actually the sister of their daughter-in-law's husband? The room fell silent as Noah took a gamble. Well, this is such a miracle, isn't it? Grace's brother becoming my sister's husband. Let's all continue to get along well. With sweat on his face, he tried to flatter my parents. But it was futile. Despite being married, I had been living with my parents for a year, wearing a gloomy face every day. Even though they didn't know the reason, they could sense it. So today, when they saw how my in-laws spoke to me and treated me, my parents finally understood. One look from my parents told them that they had no intention of getting along well. At that moment, the in-laws all went pale. They had intended to get along and receive support, but now, that possibility had become zero. Then the staff arrived, indicating that it was time for the ceremony. The friends of my brother and sister-in-law gathered in the venue, chatting happily and eagerly awaiting the event. But my in-law's family all had pale faces and looked down. Amidst that, I was looking forward to seeing what expression my sister-in-law would have when she appeared. According to the plan, my brother was supposed to tell everyone before the ceremony that I was his sister. And so, amidst an eerie atmosphere, the ceremony began. My brother walked down the aisle as usual. But as he passed by me, he subtly flashed a thumbs-up sign with his hand. Next, my sister-in-law appeared, her face pale, eyes vacant. I don't know what conversation took place, but seeing her solemn throughout the wedding suggested something serious was said. The photographer clicked away, but all the photos turned out terrible. Both staff and friends began to stir. And when asked to make the vow, my brother firmly declared, "No, I won't." The venue became even more agitated, but my brother turned around and started speaking to everyone. My sister, Grace, is Kate's brother Noah's wife. Grace was married and living together, but returned home a year ago. The reason for that was because she was harassed and ignored by Kate, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and Noah. Didn't even allow her divorce. Is it okay for such terrible things to happen? He spoke loudly and boldly, stirring up chaos among the in-laws. Hey! What are you saying? Stop it! Our in-laws desperately tried to get my brother to stop talking, but he didn't listen. My brother kept calmly telling everything about what the in-laws' family did to me. I didn't know about what was happening to Grace and started going out with Kate, even proposed. But when I found out what my sister was going through, I couldn't go through with the marriage. Everyone except the in-law family was paying close attention to my brother's serious expression. Then, taking a deep breath, he concluded, "Therefore, this marriage is cancelled. We'll return the gifts we received later, and the reception will just be a regular meal." After my brother finished speaking, the venue fell silent, but his friends applauded one by one. Praises for being a good brother who cared for his sister, and for making a wise decision filled the air. I felt my brother had good friends. Realizing I couldn't rely on my brother alone, I gathered the courage to speak to the in-law family. "You were talking about how everything would be secure in the future, but it's a shame it turned out like this, isn't it? My brother has no intention of marrying your daughter, so please try to do your best on your own." Walking up to Noah, I looked him in the eyes and said firmly, "I don't see the point in continuing to be your wife. Let's get a divorce." and return the money I've been saving up. Noah, taken aback by this sudden turn of events, seemed flustered. And then he blurted out, "Why, yeah, got it. We'll talk about it later." Noah seemed eager to end the conversation, looking around anxiously. Sensing something was off, I wanted to press him for answers, but my mother-in-law intervened. You've been so selfish. I've told you before, too. You've caused Noah a lot of trouble, and now you want to return the money you've saved up. Is money all you care about? Making Noah marry someone like you is just pitiful for him. We don't need someone like you. Get a divorce. With all due respect, haven't you been selfish too? I've heard you are fully expecting me to support you just because I'm a doctor. Upon my brother's words, my mother-in-law tensed up and turned red in the face. Both you and father were counting on someone else's money, weren't you? We're better off without people like you. My brother threw a boomerang back at our in-laws. They couldn't retort back, making them look ridiculous. I couldn't help but snicker. You talked about how everything would be secure in the future if my brother lived with you, but it's a shame it turned out like this, isn't it? With just one comment from me, my mother-in-law lost her temper and had to be restrained by the venue staff. Soon after, the wedding plans were derailed. Guests, including friends and acquaintances, were redirected to the reception to at least enjoy the meal. My brother went around apologizing to the staff, while my sister-in-law remained crestfallen. My parents and I returned the gifts to my brother and sister-in-law's friends who had attended. Meanwhile, my in-laws and Noah seemed to have vanished, likely attempting a swift escape after changing their clothes. However, my brother quickly found and stopped them. I received apologies from my in-laws and Noah promising repayment and divorce. But Noah mumbled something as he was trying to hide something. When questioned, he made a surprising statement. Well, actually, I spent all the money I had saved to buy a new house on gambling. Can I pay you back with $100 a month? It turned out that he had been using my money without permission. As a result, the purchase of a new house was postponed, and I realized that I had been forced to live together while enduring sadness all along. Shocked, I demanded him return my money immediately. There's no excuse for it. Pay it back in full and right away. Even if you have to borrow money within a week. After this, Noah gathered up all the money his parents-in-law had saved and managed to pay it back somehow, but the family's assets were left empty. Since the in-laws had retired, their future income consisted of only a small pension and the incomes of their daughter and Noah. They faced an uncertain future, visibly worn down. They lamented our plans. Apparently, assuming a secure retirement after my brother moves in, they were spending recklessly. Repaying me drained their savings, leaving them unable to maintain their lifestyle. If Noah also has to support his parents, he won't be able to live life the way he has before. Not only will he be restricted from gambling, but his spendings will also have to be restricted. But knowing Noah, he possibly won't quit gambling and resort to further loans in the future. It seemed like a downward spiral, intriguing to observe. My sister-in-law's aspirations as a doctor's wife, flaunting her status among friends, shattered. Guests at the wedding subtly ridiculed her behind her back. Perhaps she was arrogant and selfish among her friends, like she was to me. The entire in-law family plummeted into despair. I found it ironically satisfying. Though both my brother and I ended up single, it felt all right for a while. Besides, seeing the joy in my parents' faces at having their children back home made it worth it. I felt it was better to live freely, not dictated by others. I resolved to continue this peaceful routine for a while.